Welcome back, students. Welcome to biology classes. Today we are going to see 12 science biology, and we are going to see the chapter number 11, that is the biotechnology, and in that principles and processes. We have completed several topics of this, that is the principle. We have seen about the principles of biotechnology. Then we have seen that how the recombinant DNA is constructed, what are the steps of the rDNA technology, and which are the tools which are used for the recombinant DNA technology, right? So now we are going to see is about the next, that is the see you have we have seen about the palindromic sequence. We have even seen about that how the sticky ends are formed, right? Then we have seen about that how the gel electrophoresis takes place, and today we are going to see about the cloning vectors, right? So in the cloning vectors, what happens, see, these vectors are nothing but they are responsible for transferring the gene of interest into the host organism, right? So this cloning vectors, they can be plasmids and bacteriophages, which are commonly used as vectors for the cloning. So the plasmids and bacteriophages, they are used for the cloning, right? The cloning processes. Then they have ability to replicate within bacterial cells independent of the control of chromosomal DNA. So what happens here, the this plasmid and bacteriophages, they do have what, the ability to replicate. That means they have the ability to duplicate inside the bacterial cell, and they don't does not need any other or they are not dependent on any other particular things for the replication process. So as the plasmids are having the ability to replicate themselves or replicate autonomously, for this reason, when a gene of interest is inserted inside this vector, and then they are placed in the bacterial cells, then what happens, they are going for the duplication or the replication without anyone's help, or we can say independently they carry out. The bacteriophages, because of their high number per cell, have very high copy numbers of their genome within the bacterial cells. The bacteriophages are the viruses that infects the bacteria, right? So this bacteriophages, they do have high number, right? That means the number of the bacteriophages per cell increases when the replication or where the duplication takes place, right? So they do possess what, a high copy number. For this reason, their genome is present within the bacterial cell, and due to this, what happens, the multiple number of bacteriophages are produced. Now the following features are required to facilitate into a vector. Now there is presence of which type of things or which type of sites should be there in the cloning vector, right? So the first is the origin of replication, right? So the origin of replication is depicted as simply as ORI, that is ORI, right? The sequence from where replication starts, and at any piece of DNA when linked to the sequence can be made to replicate within the host cell. This sequence is responsible for controlling the copy number of the linked DNA. So here, this origin of replication, it is a sequence where the replication starts. So simply for the starting of the replication, what it need is, the first thing that it need is the origin of replication. And this is binded to a piece of DNA where it is linked to the sequence, and it is going to go do the replication inside the host cell, right? And this sequence is also responsible for controlling the copy number of linked DNA. So copy number of linked DNA, that means through in the plasmid DNA, whichever or wherever it is been linked, right, at that portion also it is going to control the copy number. So what happens, it is going to duplicate the amount of or the number of DNA. So for this reason, as the replication is continuously taking place, for this reason this is said to be the origin of replication. The second is the selectable marker. Selectable markers help in identifying and eliminating non-transformants and selectively permitting the growth of the transformants, right? Transformants, that means those cells which are which have transformed, right? So here the selectable markers are useful in identifying. So first thing what it does is, it identifies as well as it eliminating non-transformants, right? Non-transformants means those cells which are not doing the or which in which the transformation has not taken place. So in the cells, if the transformation is taking place, then that is known as the transformants, right? And non-transformants means the cells in which the transformation has not taken place. So here, these selectable markers are useful in the identification and first it is going to identify the transformants, and second is they are also responsible for eliminating, that is the removing of the non-transformants. So at last we will be only having the growth of the transformants, and that is the selectively permitting the growth of the transformants. So three things, the three functions of the selectable marker is: the first, that is the identification of the transformants; second is the removal of the non-transformants; and the third is they are going to select the transformants and they allow the growth of the transformants. Now, the transformation is a procedure through which a piece of DNA is introduced in a host bacterium, right? So what is exactly a transformation process is: the transformation process is a procedure in which what happens, a piece of DNA is incorporated or it is inserted inside the host bacterium. So it is none the here the host will be a bacteria, and for this reason what is the thing is that the piece of DNA, or we can say the gene of interest, which is to be transformed, right, or which is to be duplicated or replicated, that particular piece of DNA is inserted inside the host cell, that is the bacterium. Next, generally the genes encoding resistance to antibiotics such as ampicillin, then chloramphenicol or tetracycline or kanamycin, etc., are considered useful selectable markers for E. coli. So here there are so many different types of antibiotic names which are given. Amongst them, you have to remember about the ampicillin and tetracycline, right? So these are the two main antibiotic resistant genes which are observed in the plasmids. So here when we are talking about the transformation, this selectable markers do contain antibiotic resistant genes. So this antibiotic resistant genes are considered as the selectable markers for E. coli. So this is specific for the E. coli bacteria, that is the Escherichia coli, right? The third type or the third site which is said to be the cloning site. So these are the sites where the cloning is going to take place, right? So these cloning sites are useful to link the foreign DNA. The vector DNA need to have single recognition sites for the commonly used restriction enzymes, as presence of more than one recognition sites within the vector will generate several fragments, which will complicate the gene cloning. Now here, if only one cloning site is there, then the cloning which is going to take place, right, that is going to be easier one, and because there will be presence of only one single type of recognition sites. But if the vector does not, if the vector need to have single recognition site, but if the vector is having different cloning sites, then what will be the thing is that the particular restriction enzymes, they are not going to bind to only one site, but they are going to bind to all the different types of the recognition sites. And it, due to this, what can be happen, it can form the different types of fragments, and which makes the gene cloning complicated, right? For this reason, this cloning sites, they are linked to the foreign DNA, and the vector should have only one recognition site for the binding of the restriction enzyme. The function of the restriction enzyme is to cut the DNA as well as the foreign DNA, that is the gene of interest. So when we are talking about the cloning site, it should have one recognition sites, right, that is single recognition site, and it is commonly used for the restriction enzymes, right? And if there is presence of more recognition sites, then it can create complications in the gene cloning. The ligation of foreign DNA is carried out at a restriction site present in one of the two antibiotic resistant gene. Now, wherever the antibiotic resistant genes are present, say let's take an example that if a particular restriction enzyme is containing two antibiotic resistant genes, right, that is, if let's take an example, the first is ampicillin, Second one is the tetracycline, right? So you can see in this figure also, this figure shows about the this pink colored regions. These are the two selectable markers, right? That is, we can say the antibiotic resistant genes. If there is presence of this two in the cloning vector, what it is going to give the resistance. Now when the gene or the gene of interest is to be inserted inside this cloning vector, either it can be added into the ampicillin resistant genes, or either it is entered or incorporated inside the tetracycline gene. So here when the particular gene of interest is to be incorporated, first the restriction enzyme cut the particular this sites, right? So at this sites it is going, see here, BAM H1, SAL1, PST1, PVU1, right? So these are the sites where these are the recognition sites, right? So at this recognition sites, the restriction enzymes are going to bind. And when the restriction enzymes are binding to it, what happens? They are going for the cutting of this particular DNA, right? So when this DNA is cutted, right, this portion is removed out, and instead of this portion, the gene of interest from outside is entered inside. After that, the ligation or the filling of the gap is being carried out by the enzyme DNA ligase. So this is about the cloning sites of the cloning vector, and that is the ampicillin resistant gene and the tetracycline resistant genes. Now E. coli cloning vector, that is PBR322. This is the E. coli cloning vector. This is asked, the figure of this cloning vector is asked in the 3 marks, or it can also be asked in the 2 marks, right? This is the cloning vector of E. coli, and the name of this vector is the PBR322. And this cloning vector shows restriction sites. This is the first, starting with the HIND3, right? Then the ECO-R1, right? Then BAM H1, then SAL1, PVU2, right? Then PST1, then PVU1, and CLA1, right? So these are the restriction sites which are present in the E. coli cloning vector PBR322. It is also containing a region which is known as ori. See where I am showing the cursor. This is the region that is the origin of replication. Next is, there is presence of the antibiotic resistant genes, that is the ampicillin resistant gene and the tetracycline resistant gene. So this is the pink colored are this these are the two selectable markers, or we can say the antibiotic resistant genes. Next, the ROP, that is the, you can see here ROP is there, right? It codes for the proteins involved in the replication of the plasmid. So ROP stands for the replication of plasmid. So here this is the site, right, which is coding for the proteins which are involved in the replication of the plasmid. So this is about the cloning sites, and in here this is one of the important term, that is the insertional inactivation, right? What do you mean by insertional inactivation? So the most efficient method of screening for the presence of recombinant plasmids is based on principle that the cloned DNA fragment disrupts the coding sequence of a gene. This is termed as insertional inactivation. Now you see, I'm gonna explain you with an example. Now say for example, if we have taken our gene of interest from the we have from the foreign DNA, right? We have taken this E. coli cloning factor, that is PBR322, and there are two antibiotic resistant genes, right? First is ampicillin, second is tetracycline. Now say for example, if I'm selecting the tetracycline resistant gene, where I'm going to cut at the BAM H1 site and the SAL1. So in the middle portion of this two where I'm showing the cursor, so the portion between these two sites is going to be removed, and the removed portion is being filled by the gene of interest. So now after that, the through the DNA ligase, the ligation is going to take place. So now I have this whole cloning vector containing my gene of interest. But now here, as half of the portion of the tetracycline gene was there, right, tetracycline resistant gene was there, but here in the middle of that I have my gene of interest. For this reason, this tetracycline resistant gene cannot be expressed or it cannot be activated. And for this reason, as this genes is having in the middle a gene of interest or another DNA sequence, for this reason, this particular, upon insertion of the gene of interest, this gene becomes inactivated, and this process is known as insertional inactivation. That is, upon getting inserted inside this particular gene, the inactivation of this resistant gene occurs, and this is known as the insertional inactivation, right? So next is the, for example, the powerful methods of screening for the presence of recombinant plasmid is referred to as blue-white selection. See, this is the example which I have explained upper in the upper this cloning vector, right? That upon the insertion of the gene of interest over here, it can carry out the inactivation of this tetracycline resistant gene, and that is nothing but the insertional inactivation. The next and the last type is the vectors for cloning genes in plants and animals. Now there are different types of vectors which are cloning for the genes in plants as well as in the animals. So here the examples have been given. The Agrobacterium tumeficans, right? The Agrobacterium tumeficans, that is the pathogen of a dicot plant. That means a plant which is containing the two cotyledons, right? So this Agrobacterium tumeficans is able to deliver a piece of DNA which is known as tDNA, right? To transform normal plant cells into a tumor and direct this tumor cells to introduce the chemicals required by the pathogen. So here why it is known as tDNA, because here the Agrobacterium tumeficans, they are acting as a pathogen for the dicot plants, and they have the ability to transfer the piece of DNA, right, to a normal plant cell. So where the normal plant cells are going to be converted into the tumor cells, right? So when we are talking about the tumor cells, so the normal plant cells are converting themselves on the tumor cell upon addition of the piece of DNA that was the tDNA. So this Agrobacterium tumeficans, they add tDNA into the normal plant cells, and when the tDNA is introduced into the normal plant cells, this normal plant cells or the normal cells of the plant, they transform themselves or they are transformed into a tumor cell, and these tumor cells produce several chemicals which are required by the pathogen. So it is going to be helpful to the pathogen, not to the plant. Next, retroviruses in animals have the ability to transform normal cells into cancerous cells, right? So here even the retroviruses, which are mostly, you can see they are carrying out the retroversals, right? That is the retrovirus, and they are working in the animals, and where they are having the ability to transform the normal cells which are transformed into the cancerous cells. Next, the tumor including TI plasmid of Agrobacterium tumeficans has been modified into cloning vector having no more pathogenic to plant, right? There is also presence of tumor inducing plasmid. Here the tumor inducing plasmid of Agrobacterium tumeficans, that is said to be the TI plasmid. Simply the short form of this plasmid is the TI plasmid, and this is the plasmid of the Agrobacterium tumeficans. Now this TI plasmid is been modified into the cloning vector which is having no more pathogenic to plant. So this TI plasmid is not acting pathogenic to the normal plant. For this reason, similarly, retrovirus have been modified into cloning vector for animals. Same way for the retrovirus also, they are also been modified so that they cannot be, they cannot act or they cannot infect the animals, right? So this is about the uh, vectors for the cloning genes which are observed in the plants and animals. So we have seen the example of the Agrobacterium tumefaciens. We have seen about the example of the retroviruses. The Agrobacterium tumefaciens is seen in the plants, and the retrovirus are working in the animals. So this is all about the today's lecture, and that is about the cloning vector. So here we have seen several features which are required in the cloning vector. So I hope you are very clear with today's topic, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.